Good morning. This is for my English speaking crowd. I want to recommend the Middlesex, the book Middlesex by Jeffrey. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Eugenides, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I happen to have found it, or maybe not happen to have found it. He's the writer of The Virgin Suicide, who is maybe better known as in the film, as a film rather than a book, and it was published in 2002, and it was regarded as one of the most important, not important fiction, uh, contemporary fiction published. So I'm just going to read some of them. So some of what people had to say. Men's Journal had to say about this. Middlesex is about a herma hermaphrodite, in the way that Thomas Wolfe's Look Homeward Angel is about a teenage boy, a novel of chance, family, sex, surgery in America. It contains multitudes. An epic, feast of a novel, thrilling in the scope of its imagination and surprising in its tenderness. The Boston Globe says a big, cheeky, splendid novel. It goes from places few narrators would dare to tread, lyrical and fine. Eugenides is one of those rare writers who can manage sympathy and detachment simultaneously and work small wonders with words while he's at it. That's for The Virgin Suicide. He's a, this book is what does it mean, epic? It's written about a family, and there's the Greek component. So I'm reading you, one of the chapters is called Minotaurs. So I'm going to read a few quotes from the book, because I don't like it when people just talk about a book. I think you should really experience the book. I recommend this book for the following people. If you're interested in family, if you're interested in gender roles, if you're interested in gender roles in society, if you're interested in the differences between men and women in society, if you're interested in Greek immigrants and life of Greek immigrants in America. Yes, so it starts like this. I was born twice. First as a baby girl on a remarkably smugglers Detroit day in January of 1960, and then again as a teenage boy in an emergency room near Petoskey, Michigan in August of 1974. Specialized readers may have come across me in Dr. Peter Luce's study Gender Identity in 5 Alpha Reduced Pseudo-Hermaphrodites, published in the Journal of Pediatric Endocrinology, 1975. Or maybe you've seen my photograph in Chapter 16 of How Sadly Outdated Genetics and Heredity. That's me on page 578. My birth certificate lists my name as Calliope Helen Stephanides. My most recent driver's license from the Federal Republic of Germany records my first name simply as Cal. I'm a former field hockey goalie, long-standing member of Save the Manatee Foundation, rare attendant in the Greek Orthodox liturgy, and for most of my adult life an employee of the U.S. State Department. Like TRCS, I was first one thing and then the other. I've been ridiculed by classmates, guinea pigged by doctors, palpitated by specialists, and researched by the March of Dimes. A red-headed girl from Grosse Pointe fell in love with me, not knowing what I was. Her brother liked me too. An army tank led me into urban battle once. A swimming pool turned me into a myth. I've left my body in order to occupy others, and all this happened before I turned 16. But now, at the age of 41, I feel another birth coming on. After decades of neglect, I find myself thinking about departed great aunts and uncles, long-lost grandfathers, unknown fifth cousins, or in the case of an inbred family like mine, all those things in one. And so before it's too late, I want to get it down for good. This roller coaster ride of a single gene through time. Sing now, O muse, of the recessive mutation on my fifth chromosome. Sing how it bloomed 2.5 centuries ago on the slope of Mount Olympus, while the goats bleated and the olives dropped. Sing how it passed down through 9 generations, gathering invisibly within the polluted pool of the Stephanides family, and sing how Providence and the gods of a massacre sent the gene flying again, how it blew like a seed across the sea to America, where it drifted through our industrial rains until it fell to earth in the fertile soil of my mother's own Midwestern womb. Sorry if I get a little Homeric at times, that's genetic too. 3 months before I was born, in the aftermath of one of our elaborate Sunday dinners, my grandmother Desdemona Stephanides ordered my brother to get her silkworm box. Chapter 11 had been heading towards the kitchen for a second helping of rice pudding when she blocked his way. At 57, with her short, squat figure and intimidating hairnet, my grandmother was perfectly designed for blocking people's paths. Behind her in the kitchen, the day's large female contingent had congregated, laughing and whispering. Intrigued, Chapter 11 leaned sideways to see what was going on, but Desdemona reached out and firmly pinched his cheek. Having regained his attention, she sketched a rectangle in the air and pointed at the ceiling. Then, through her ill-fitting dentures, she said, "Go for Yiya, Dolly Moo." Chapter 11 knew what to do. He ran across the hall into the living room. On all four, he scrambled up the formal staircase to the second floor. He raced past the bedrooms along the upstairs corridor. At the far end was a nearly invisible door, wallpapered over like the entrance to a secret passageway. Chapter 11 located the tiny doorknob level with his head and, using all his strength, pulled it open. Another set of stairs lay behind it. For a long moment, my brother stared hesitantly into the darkness above before climbing very slowly now up to the attic where my grandparents lived. In sneakers, he passed beneath the 12 damply newspapered bird cages suspended from the rafters. With a brave face, he immersed himself in the sour odor of the parakeets, and in my grandparents' own particular aroma, a mixture of mothballs and hashish. He negotiated his way past my grandfather's book-piled desk and his collection of Rebetica records, finally bumping into the leather ottoman and the circular coffee table made of brass. He found my grandparents' bed, and underneath it the silkworm box. Carved from olive wood, a little bigger than a shoebox, it had a tin lid perforated by tiny air holes and inset with the icon of an unrecognizable saint. The saint's face had been rubbed off, but the fingers of his right hand were raised to bless a short purple, terrifically self-confident looking mulberry tree. After gazing a while at this vivid botanical presence, Chapter 11 pulled the box under the bed and opened it. Inside were 2 wedding crowns made from rope and coiled like snakes, the 2 long braids of hair, each tied with crumbling black ribbon. He poked one of the braids, and with his index finger, he just then, a parakeet squawked, and making my brother jumped, and he closed the box, tucked it under his arm, and carried it downstairs to Desdemona. So we're starting to talk about. We open with a pregnancy, and we talk about people that are from Greece, but we talk about immigration as well, and what it's like to grow up in a Greek immigrant family, and the history of Greece. And actually, this is like the massacre that occurred in a city that in Hebrew it's called Izmir. Here it's called something else, I will let you know, in the 1920s. And the vivid descriptions, and this is just, the writer describes the smells. He's using multi-sensory words. So you're all surrounded. So it's really, when you read, all your senses are activated. Your sense of smell. I'm a bit cold, but the smell. He describes scents of flowers and spices of the Greek islands, and the scenery, what kind of trees grow there. He really did good research I'm sure, because you just get a picture of what it was like to live in a small village in 1922, what it was like to flee. And there's some Greek words. What were they dressed like? What is the relationship there between the Turks and the Greeks, and how the brutal massacre of the Turkish people, not Turkish people, the army. Sorry, very big difference. So, and about, it makes history seem personal, which is so important because history does affect people. And about Mustafa Kemal Pasha, who ruled the Ottoman Empire, who was ruling over Smyrna. In Hebrew, it's Izmir. That's where the massacre occurred. And Smyrna endures today in a few Rebettica songs and a stanza from the Wasteland, one of my favorite poets, T.S. Eliot. Mr. Eugenides, the Smyrna merchant, unshaven, with a pocket full of currants, CIF, London, documents at sight, asked me in demotic French to luncheon at a Cannon Street hotel, followed by a weekend at the Metropole. Everything you need to know about Smyrna is contained in that. The merchant is rich, and so was Smyrna. So the Greek army doesn't manage to hold off the Turkish army, and we have Dr. Philobosian, a tragic figure. He is he's from these people that were massacred by the Turkish. They're Armenians. They're Armenians. Shusha. They're Armenians, and he has a letter that says that he was the person that he took care of this Kamel, the head of the Ottoman, the commander, what do you call it? The one who ruled the Ottoman Empire. But the tragedy is that they couldn't read. The people that massacred the Armenians and the Greek couldn't read the letter that said this man is protected by the ruler of the Ottoman Empire. So there's so much irony in this. The tragedy of people who cannot read, but they murder people that can. And the Greeks, the way they were massacred by the Turks, it's just a tragedy. People that gave us Western culture, everything. I mean, the Greek philosophers, the mythology are the base for so much of our own culture. So we have the Bible here. We have so many references, cultural references. And, the way you take all these elements and weave it together into this novel is just such a celebration. It is a book you should read one person said she read it on a train. You should really focus on reading it. I read it on Saturday when I wasn't distracted by anything else. And today I'm taking a day off, so I'm reading it again. And here's a quote: "Everyone who builds a factory builds a temple." So Henry Ford's English language melting pot. There's just so much irony in this description of the melting pot and immigration. And there's nothing more important, I think, in the U.S. today than the immigration and dealing with what immigration did to the U.S. and how the immigrants that had been there already, how they treated the the ones that were more recent immigrants. And the whole melting pot idea, that is actually, there's a scene where there's actually people coming into a pot, and they're coming with their individual cultures, and they're coming out like unified Americans. And it's actually a very violent act to erase somebody's culture, isn't it? I think it's in Europe as well now. The French are trying to say, well, we don't want religion, we want to be secular society, and you actually erase a person's culture that way. It's a very violent act. So I didn't get to the scene of I will follow this up. I've only managed to get to page 167, and there are 500 pages, but they're all a pleasure. Don't get me wrong, but only towards the end, only towards the quarter end, like if you the three quarters of the book is actually presenting. It's all the the presentation, all the things that led to what happened later. And only at the end are we dealing with gender dysphoria, being a person that has both male and female parts, um, which is a very interesting topic today. There are many people now that say identified as another gender than the one I was born as. I'm kind of tending to believe more in reincarnations, personally. I do believe that there is reincarnation, but he's talking from a scientific point of view about genetics, which is also important. Maybe that is a sort of reincarnation. The genes passed on from our forefathers. And as a person born to also, I wouldn't say incestuous, but this is incestuous relationship. If you think about it, the whole humanity is based on incestuous relationship, because what is Adam and Eve? I mean, when they had children, who did they mate with? And it's a very interesting question if a lot of society, a lot of our humanity wasn't in fact, at the beginning at least, incestuous, based on a mating between people that were born in the same family. So my story of incestuous beginnings is my great-grandfather married his niece, the daughter of his brother. So that's pretty close genetically. That explains a lot, because we've got a lot of interesting family characters, a lot of problems. I would say only one is really badly damaged genetically. He was born deaf and mental problems. He had mental problems and things. But I think the biggest problem in that family was really very, very difficulties expressing emotions. So that my other side of the family, my maternal side, is the functioning side, and that's the Holocaust side. I'm not even exploring the Holocaust side. All I know is I got a list once from the Holocaust Foundation that that family has PhDs, and I'm thinking, why am I the only educated person in my family? I'm saying truly educated. My sister has a degree in journalism, which is for me not an education, sorry. What is a degree in journalism anyway? So she practiced writing things, but she never did anything with it. She never went deep into anything. I also believe my education is lacking because I'm an educated person. If you don't think your education is lacking, you're definitely lacking in education. So I put in a little bit of personal, because when you make a book review, you should always realize that not everybody is entering the same ocean. Like when you enter an ocean, you're bringing yourself in it. So for me, ticks all the boxes. Do I have a family history that impacted me? Absolutely. Am I living under the shadow of my ancestors, all the people that came before me? Absolutely. I live in Israel. I mean, everybody here is here because of their ancestors, right? If we were, yeah, and you see this woman? Yeah, she's irritating. So the point is, she's in the frame as well now. So this is a country that is based on people coming here from different countries, and they all bring in a lot of elements, and they make this really explosive people. I believe that the people that came to US from very emotional cultures, where people really express themselves openly, are, there's a little bit of sometimes balancing act. If you come from a cold, more contained culture, and then there's a more open, like screaming culture, Mediterranean people, there's a balancing act, maybe. But here it seems there's always like drama. So I really recommend this book. I'm going to sit and read it now quietly. And realize I do have a loud voice. I recommend this book. I've only got to 167. I will do another follow-up as I read on, but so far it's been amazing. I think the audience for this book is people that are educated. Because if you don't know Greek mythology, I don't know if you'll appreciate it. But you don't have to know too much. If you just know a little bit, it's good. And you know what? I take it back. It could be also a way of bringing you in. Like sometimes you don't know a lot, and then you read something in a book and you want to research it further. And then you say, hey, maybe I should read about the Greek mythology more. Maybe I should learn more about, like in my case, I want to know more about the history of this region, which we're very nearby it. What happened to the Greeks? What happened to the Turks? We were under Ottoman Empire rule here until the British came here at the end of World War One. So we're definitely affected. My great grandfather was in the Turkish prison in Turkey for a while. So I'm definitely, but we all, whether you're English, whether you're European, Asian, we're all influenced by what went on in this region, in the East here, in Greece that brought us all this culture. And the writer said that he was influenced by Jewish American writers who wrote about their experience, and they're always thinking about what they are is related to their family and how they were brought up. The psychoanalysis that Philip Roth is always thinking how he got to be the way he is because of his Jewish heritage. So he was influenced by Jewish American writers, also children of immigrants. And I think this is a great read. I would definitely recommend it. I wonder if this was published in 2002, and I'm wondering if he hadn't written anything since then. I have to research that as well. So I recommend it for anyone this is the audience I think that would benefit the most. People that are intellectually inclined. It could be a young person who's intellectually inclined. A person who already is educated will enjoy it. A person who's curious about other people. A person who's interested in immigration and their family roots. A person who's interested in the America and what's become of America. And I think this is also very good for people who are just interested in literature and what makes a great novel. For me, what makes this great novel, as opposed to the Netflix experience, is the multisensory, the use of multisensory words. I don't know if this is the right phrase. I never studied literature. I studied theater, so I studied a lot about Greek culture, the Greek theater, but I don't know the exact terminology in literature. I only took one course in comparative literature and poetry, which is my big love. So I don't know, and I studied psychology. So I definitely think that I agree with Freud that family is absolutely where it all begins. And Freud, of course, went back to the Greeks, and he studied the classics, and he pointed our attention to the Oedipus complex and how the relationship between a mother and a son. Later on, he also talked about father and daughters, but specifically the mother and son relationship is so volatile. And the Greeks were geniuses beyond what I can say. And in a way, I'm tempted to go back and read the Greek classics, but in a way not. I've always wanted to read the Odyssey, but I got stuck. It's so rich, it's so full of characters that it was too much for me, and I also needed a bridge. So this could be a bridge, because when you read classics, sometimes you need a bridge to contemporary life. It's relevant for sure, but how can you make it accessible is the big question. It's like reading the Bible. How can you read the Bible today with the eyes of 2021? So this also has a little bit of religion in it, and it's just brilliant. Brilliant. And I feel like I was on a voyage with him all the way. I was in Greece. I was in the massacre by the Turks. I was coming in Ellis Island. I was in Ellis Island with the immigrants. Actually, I have family that went through Ellis Island because a branch of my family went from Ukraine, Black Sea area to America in the beginning of the 20th century. I am related to a senator, American Jewish senator, but that's another matter. And he went through the whole story, the whole shebang of being a janitor and then going to night school and law school. And I still have relatives in America, in LA, in New York, in Washington, D.C. Um, but when I try to form connections, there's nothing there anymore. There's nothing really there because it's a different time now and family is not as important. I mean, in Israel, family is very important, but not the past. It's just the now. As a young person just said to me here, live the now. And we miss so much when we just live the moment. Yes, we're encouraged to live the moment and to breathe in and live the beauty of this place. But if we are just living the now, we miss so much depth and so much understanding and insight into what makes us ourselves. And it's very famous now, sorry, famous is not the word, it's very popular now to do DNA tests, but are we really just genes? He says genes are important, and he has this description of how an embryo develops and in which stages the embryo has what parts. And yes, we are our genes, absolutely, but we're also our surrounding and the culture and the way our parents specifically raised us and this particular culture. And as a person who was raised both in the US and in Israel, and my children have been raised in Europe, I find it fascinating that people have lived lives of immigration, and yet there are people like Donald Trump who just makes it sound like it's trivial, not important, and in fact disturbing to the society. But how much richer is our culture when we actually talk about immigration and we actually discuss our roots, how we were brought up, our family stories, the particular family story and the general family story is called, Jung said it, the collective subconscious. The collective subconscious and then the particular subconscious. And bringing it to consciousness is just so amazing. And so I really recommend this book. Maybe I will read the Greek classics again, but I seriously doubt it. I think it was the most painful chapter of my education because I had a very difficult lecturer who was translating from Greek to Hebrew, the classics. And she was not a person who really enjoyed teaching, and you could see it. I think one of the reasons why I think I have such a potential of teaching well, if I'm in the right place, and people would have actually appreciated it, is because I've seen so many teachers and lecturers, and I know what I like. And what I need is enthusiasm. And when a book is enthusiastic, like this one, it's great. Just the last bit I want to say, I remember studying English in New York City Public School with a great teacher. And she taught us what words are made of. And America, English language is actually made up of so many other languages. A lot of it German, French as well, and other languages. And Greek, a lot of Greek. So when you know what words are made up of, it just enriches you so much. And you feel such a gratitude for all the cultures that came before you. But when you cancel out all the cultures and you just live now and you don't care where the words come from, you don't care about the origin of words, the origin of people, it's the same because language is what makes us unique from other animals. We have such an ability to express ourselves on so many deep levels. And when you cancel all that out and you just live the now, you live a very shallow life. You just live on the surface. So I really recommend this book. I'm going to read it by the ocean. And My grandfather used to say, the more languages you know, the more people you know. The ancient world, not just the ancient world, sorry, it just a, just 100 years ago, people could speak different languages. People who lived in this region, the Middle East, Asia Minor, they could speak so many languages. And there were so many people living together. And Turkey, there were people that could speak uh, Turkish and Greek, and all these Serbian languages, and it was just such a rich culture. And there's a quote here from this British guy who's talking about the different people that live there, and he said, you know what he says? He says the best people here are the Turks. Of all the people, they are the Turks, and the way this is his first. The Greeks invaded. The refugees said. Then the Turks invaded back. My hand got in the way. This is a man speaks to them, and then there's the British, a small little one-page dialogue. This book is just like a movie because you have constantly people speaking to each other. So the refugees, there's a great description of how the refugees are trying to escape, and the British are controlling everything. The French are getting their citizens out, and the British are ruling over everything. And they decide who they're going to save and who not, mostly not save. And the descriptions are just so vivid. And it says here, there's a dialogue. It says, our orders are to protect British property and citizens. There's a dialogue between this commander, British commander. No, the captain of the ship, sorry. And he says, our orders are to protect British property and citizens. But surely, sir, if the Turks arrive and there's a massacre. And he answers, there's nothing we can do about it, Phillips. I've spent years in the Near East. The one lesson I've learned is that there is nothing you can do with these people. I agree. Nothing at all. The Turks are the best of the lot. The Armenian I liken to the Jew, deficient moral, intellectual character. As for the Greeks, well, look at them. They've burned out